Missing gaps, your father and his father. There comes a time in every man's life when he is ready to move on. Move on from partying and being selfish and wasting time, or he's got himself into a position where he needs to get everything together and stop being selfish, either getting married, having a kid, or just being sick and tired of the same stuff. Once you are that man in search of a path in life, looking back into the past will solve a lot of these issues and fill the gaps that are missing. Family history is one of the biggest keys to success. When you're talking about generational transfer of wealth, it's huge. Even successful people, super successful people, from first generation to second generation, there's a 30% fail rate. From second to third, 70. So this is super successful people that have done most things better than everybody else in life, and they still fail at a super high rate. So think about the people that don't understand anything and they're average and they're trying to make things better. It's even worse. So when you are thinking about these aspects in your life and you're trying to fill these gaps, if it's financial, if it's relationships, leadership, or family, your parents and how they were raised can tell a lot. And also how you were raised can tell a lot about those gaps that are missing. All of these gaps can be filled in your life by understanding what you are missing from your past. Because those past issues that your father and your grandfather has had, and everybody in your life, that trickles down to you. So some examples is if you are bad financially, you can probably look at your father and your grandfather, and they were probably not the best at it either. So for myself, when I was being raised, my biological father wasn't there a lot, so I learned a lot from my grandfather. My grandfather was a very old school, simple man. I think he finished the 8th grade, and that was pretty much it. He started, he was a coal miner. He did that for a very long time. He retired early and hasn't worked for 40 years. I believe he lives a very awesome life, and he's super happy he was able to help out both of his children, my mother and his and my uncle. They're both super successful, and he's been married forever. So that is a success on huge standards compared to most people in the United States. And then the next person I had in my life was my stepfather, who was a super hardworking person. He started as an electrician, then worked his all the way up to running basically state level, a huge region in his industry. Super respected, makes a lot of money, good family man, and just hardworking. But both of them, they weren't the best with finances or relationships. So me knowing these things, I had to fill some of these gaps. So the financial stuff and like the leadership and the family, because my family is very mixed up. So I did things subconsciously, just trying to fill those voids and make sure that I made the generation better. Because one thing that my generations have done is they're getting better every single time. So for me, the finances was a big issue because I wanted to make sure that I wasn't put in that situation. So for me, I joined the military so I didn't need anything from anybody else. And I slowly and consistently worked on it and gotten better and better and better. And it has worked out. But you, as a man, you need to look at yourself like objectively. And hopefully you can do this with your father or your male person that helped you in life. And if you don't have one, then just grab a mentor. Very simple, easy thing to do. Go through these things step by step and figure out where these shortfalls are, because you will have them. Everybody does. You should constantly be taking in as much criticism and feedback as you possibly can take and slowly working those issues out. Because once you get to your mid-30s and especially 40s, you should understand all of your shortcomings and have fixed almost all of them. There are things that you cannot fix. There are mistakes that people make that can't be fixed, but you can understand that and not make the same mistake twice. So when you are going through life and you're trying to become better and find where these shortcomings are coming from, look at your past. Look at your father and your grandfather and find out what they did well and what they've done wrong. But also look at how culture's changed, because that does decide a lot. Because back in the day, you could do things one way, but now totally different. So the shortcomings that you have as a man, they were most likely passed on. And one thing that you don't want to do is pass on those same shortcomings. So you have the opportunity and the responsibility to make sure that those things don't get passed on from one generation to the next. So for myself, I'm going to make sure that I have my kids with the correct understanding about how life works and family. Family is a big thing for me because mine wasn't always together. So I seeked that out in my wife, the person that I was going to have kids with, because that was a big issue with me, because my family is so mixed up that one side of my family I didn't even know until I was like in my 30s, and then the other one is so mixed up, a blended mixed family that a lot of people have now because relationships really don't work out. So I picked a spouse that has a very well put together family, and I married her, and I've been married with her for almost 10 years now. So that is a success in itself, but I knew that's what I wanted because I didn't like how my family was so erratic. I love my family to death, but I wanted to make sure that mine was a little better put together is all. And I try to do that with most things in my life. I understand where my faults are, and I'm still trying to correct them every day. And even the successes that I have, I still, if I'm like, wow, I keep on struggling with this, I had to step back and I was like, okay, how have my past generations dealt with the same issues that I have? And I was like, oh, wow, look at this. This has still been an issue over and over. Okay, so I have to do it by myself, basically. I have to find people outside of my family that understands how this works so I don't pass it on to my next generation. And that's how you should look at everything, especially leadership. Leadership is a lost art now, because we are lied to that everyone can be a leader, and that's definitely not the case. There are roles in your relationship with your wife and your girlfriend, and then there's roles in actual life. Everyone thinks that they're the main character, and if you think you're the main character, you're probably not. Just like most people, when they do things, they think that they're not good enough, and they're way better than most people. So filling roles and understanding a role before you move on to the next one is a huge downfall now, because leaders are not what they used to be, and now they're transformed into something else that it's not even true. And that's why things are so chaotic at this time. So leadership for men is huge. Just being able to speak and take direction and not be emotional and process the information coming in, and then put out good information. The test of a man on how he can take masculine information is huge, because most of them will be super emotional and they won't be able to control themselves, and they will act like women in their voices, how they act, and they'll just be pure attacks, and they won't take the criticism or what is actually being said. They will just react with emotion. And most of the time, reacting with emotion is not the way to do it. We are all pushed now as men to be in touch with our emotions, and we are in touch way too much with our emotions. There's times to be emotional, for sure, but it's not all the time. And that's one of those gaps that most people had. It's something that I had to work on for a long time, because statistically, I've said this over and over, I'm an anomaly where I had so many things to hinder me, but I knew this. Like most of us that grew up the way that I grew up knew that it was going to be a hard road. And instead of being a victim and blaming the world, I was like, you know what? I got to live this life. This is my life. I got to make it better. And I never thought I would be in the position I am now. But the only reason I am is because of hard work and me reaching out to people and letting men that were better than me, that could teach me something, letting them be hard on me and work on me and let them teach me how to become better. And without that, I would have been lost for sure. If my stepdad wasn't in my life, if my grandfather wasn't in my life, if I was just raised by my mother, I would probably be a wreck. So look back at your history, find out where those missing gaps are, and fill them with positive male role models. If you do that, your life will be 10 times better and easier, and you will understand why these things are happening to you in real life.